Pikmin 3 Deluxe is 2 weeks away now, and its success could determine the future of Pikmin 4. Every detail we have learned about it so far has checked off essential needs for it to sell well. Pikmin has never sold great, but those who have played them are very vocal on how much they enjoy it. Pikmin 3 Deluxe sells somewhere near the 3 to 5 million range. It could tell Nintendo people care about Pikmin as a franchise, and maybe even take Pikmin 4 out of its development hell it's trapped in right now. It is clear to me that Nintendo only makes Pikmin games because it is Miyamoto's baby child. Pikmin sales are on par with the likes of F-Zero after all, and right now Captain Falcon is more a Smash icon than a racer. The small drip feed of Pikmin content after 2004 only came from Miyamoto's passion for Pikmin itself. If you don't believe me, then why are Pikmin in the promotional art for the Super Nintendo World, where even though it has Super Nintendo World in the title, only franchise to appear beside the Pikmin cameo is the Mario universe itself? Well, it's because Miyamoto is heavily involved in producing it. Otherwise, wouldn't Nintendo just pick a higher selling franchise like Zelda, Animal Crossing, or Metroid to go alongside Mario? But instead, they go with Nintendo's 26th best-selling franchise, Pikmin. To me, that's an odd choice unless you dive into Miyamoto's thinking. He really wants Pikmin to do well, and I think he's the sole person at Nintendo really pushing for more Pikmin content. With all that being said, I want Pikmin 3 Deluxe to sell extremely well for the sake of Pikmin 4. We don't have to rely on it being Miyamoto's baby child for future games to come out. With everything we've learned about Pikmin 3, the future is looking bright. Nintendo had a treehouse where they confirmed a few things about the deluxe version, and the biggest two takeaways from me are the difficulty settings and the new side stories. At the treehouse, they confirmed 2 harder difficulties that would limit days, Pikmin counts, and other additional challenging elements. This is huge for me as Pikmin 3 was by far the easiest game in the series, so to have a chance for it to challenge myself is thrilling just thinking about it. Also, now I can safely recommend it to anybody, from casuals to hardcore gamers. But what excites me even further is the new content we'll see in Pikmin 3 Deluxe. What we know right now is that there will be side stories telling the story of Almar and Louis before and after the events of Pikmin 3. Before the game's release, we know pretty much everything there is to know about the prequel story. The company went back into debt, and Almar and Louis are sent back to PNF 404 to clear the debt once again. We also know the style of the adventures they are taking, as it's like the collect treasure mission modes from the original Pikmin 3. The style makes sense and is exactly what I was thinking these side missions would be. However, this just intrigues me more what the post-game has in store for us. Nintendo has been cautious not to give any details on this subject pre-launch, so we can only speculate what it could be right now. I'm going into some Pikmin 3 spoilers here, so fair warning. At the end of Pikmin 3, Louis is left behind by Almar, Charlie, Alf, and Brittany. And at the very end of the credits, we see something crash landing on PNF 404. My best guess is that this is none other than the president coming out in desperation to save his company. As we know from the regular story, both Louis and Almar were knocked out and were MIA with no direct communication with the presidents for at least a few days, if not a few weeks. The president must have been panicked and went down to try to help out Almar and Louis like he did in Pikmin 2. If I am right, then the second story mission would involve the president finding Louis. What exactly would these missions be? I have a couple ideas here. Situation 1. Since the Dolphin is crashed and presumably the president could only buy a junky spaceship as he's in massive debt, his spaceship crash landed too. The president and Louis venture out to find the Dolphin spaceship's parts a la the original Pikmin game. They fix the ship and sail back home. In situation 2, the president also crash lands and finds Louis, but since they aren't engineers like Almar is, they can't fix the ship, but they do manage to send an SOS out to Almar. Almar receives this message and immediately goes to save them, but it will take about a week for him to come back. So the president and Louis are forced to survive a week on the planet This would introduce a new night mode where the captains would have to defend their base from waves of creatures attacking their home base. In Situation 3, the captain lands the ship and finds Louis, but he wants to finish paying the debt before leaving back home. Out of these scenarios, option 3 is where my money is. I think the dev team wants to just stick to reusing assets, so making new ship part assets would be very unlikely. The easiest thing for the dev team to do would just make more of these collect treasure style mission modes. However, having that night survival horde mode would be so amazing. That would introduce a new game mode. I would be really excited for what that would mean for Pikmin 4. Speaking about Pikmin 4, I have a strong feeling this final mission story would give us a hint at what is to come for Pikmin 4. The Pikmin series has a history and teases. Multiple onion colors flying up at the end of Pikmin 1, hinting at a Pikmin 2, to Pikmin 3's ending hinting at the side story in a deluxe version. I would not be surprised to see something at the end hinting at another spaceship crash landing, a new color Pikmin, or Louis somehow being left behind again. We won't know for sure if they will do this, but we'll find out very soon. How this connects to Pikmin 4 is a bigger discussion, and we'll find out way more when the game actually comes out, so definitely expect more speculation videos like this. One of the biggest questions I have for Pikmin 3 Deluxe is, when was this in production? We all heard that Pikmin 4 was very close to completion in 2015, but my question is, was this DLC supposed to be Pikmin 4? Or at least part of it? I want to wait to play the extra content to see how much is actually there. Although I will say right now, my early thoughts is that this DLC was never supposed to be Pikmin 4. Why? Because they only added 10 missions. How do I know this? In the demo, we can see all the challenges in the game, and there are 4 about the side story missions. One of them details completing 10 mission modes total. It would make sense that they would split them evenly to 5 missions each, as we know there are only 5 areas to explore in Pikmin 3's base game. So having 10 missions total is about a third of the size of a typical Pikmin game, which makes way more sense for DLC than a brand new game. Now these are new aspects of the game that should excite Pikmin fans who've already played Pikmin before to pick up the game. But what is in it for the newcomers? This is where the demo comes into play. Nintendo never has demos for their major $60 first-party games, but they decided to give Pikmin a chance with a demo. This is so smart by Nintendo because Pikmin is not a game that people see for the first time and just want to try playing it. This is a game where you had to play first, get addicted to the gameplay, be invested in the story, and that's when you are hooked. Having the demo where it lasts until the first boss is an excellent tease of what is to come for this game. And I suspect it will convince a lot more people to try the game out. With all the before mentioned factors and it being on the Switch, which seemingly everything on the Switch sells really well, means that most likely this will be the top selling Pikmin game to date. I believe that getting 3 to 5 million copies sold will bolster Pikmin 4 to come out within the next year or two. That is, depending on where that game actually is in its development cycle. I want to believe Miyamoto in that it must be pretty far into its cycle. Great sales could persuade Nintendo into finally putting resources into finishing Pikmin 4. At the end of the day, even if this does flop, we're still getting new Pikmin content, which I'll remind you, does not happen every year. I'm really grateful for this no matter what. Anyways, if you stuck around to the end, it probably means you really enjoy Pikmin. Like I mentioned before, I will have more Pikmin discussions after the game is out, so subscribe so you don't miss out. Anyways, have a great day.